This video is brought to you by ProVideoSchool.com. Sign up for live online training and view other free tutorials at ProVideoSchool.com. Hi, this is Paul Esquino with ProVideoSchool.com, and today I'm going to bring you a tutorial on creating better slow motion effects in Final Cut Pro using Motion 3's optical flow retiming feature. So we're in Final Cut Pro right now, and we have a short sequence on the timeline. And let's find a clip that we want to create a slow motion effect for. Here's a clip right here. So let's look at really quickly the way that maybe you're familiar with making slow motion effects, older ways of doing it. You might just mouse over the clip, right click, and go down to speed. And let's say you want this to go half as fast, so 50% speed. So you might change this to 50, hit OK, and the clip will double in length, pushing everything after this clip forward, and you'll have a slow motion clip then. The problem with that is with the frame blending checkbox turned on when I did that slow motion effects, Final Cut Pro is blending frames together. Every other frame is a combination of the frame before it and the frame after it, and the problem with that is visually it's not as appealing as this new optical flow retiming feature where Motion 3 will actually create new frames based on some mathematical algorithm trying to figure out what that middle frame would be. So it's a much more advanced feature, and it looks a lot better. Downside of it is it's just a little bit more clunky to do it this way, and it's processor intensive, and sometimes it could take a long time to do it this way. So I should preface this by also saying right now this is the current method that you do it in Final Cut Studio 2. I suspect that come the next Final Cut Studio release, this feature that I'm about to show you might be a little bit more integrated within Final Cut Pro so that you wouldn't even have to go outside to Motion 3. But for now, this is the way you do it. So I'm going to just undo to get that speed back to 100% right here on this clip. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to click the clip, and I'm going to right-click, send to, and then send to Motion Project. And I have to save the Motion Project first, so let's just stick it on the desktop, and we'll just call it slowmo.motn for motion. And I have the checkbox here checked Launch Motion. Let me bring it over there, Launch Motion, and Embed Motion Content. So this is going to open up Motion with this clip in it, and it's going to embed whatever change I do in Motion. It's going to embed it into the current Final Cut Pro timeline. So we're going to click Save, and Motion's going to launch. And let me bring this window down a bit. Get this in view. Okay. And I'm going to change the view to fit in window so we can see everything that's happening. So now I have one clip in motion. And to apply this optical flow retiming, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the File Browser window, and I'm going to change to the Inspector tab. And after I change to the Inspector tab, actually I have to click on this image here. And once I change to the Inspector tab, a whole bevy of options come up here. There are 4 sub-tabs: Properties, Behaviors, Filters, and Image. I want the Properties tab selected. And then what I want to do is I want to go down to the Timing drop-down arrow right here and open that up. And down here we see different fields to retime this. The Time Remap drop-down is by default constant speed, which means, by default we're not doing any speed changes here as we brought it in. We want to click that drop down, and actually we don't want to do that yet. Sorry, I need to look down further. Frame blending down here, right now it's set to blending. We want to change that to optical flow. Now, as soon as we do that, there's some interesting things going on. As soon as I do that, Motion 3 actually starts processing the information necessary to be able to create these frames using this optical flow retiming method. And the only indication that this is happening is if you can follow my mouse, there's a little window here, and let me zoom in. This tells you that there is a process going on. It's analyzing the file to figure out how the optical flow retiming is going to create frames. So if I click on that, I can actually, a window should pop up. I'll double click. The window pops up showing me where Final Cut, or Motion rather, is in the analysis process of this clip. So right now it says optical flow for the QuickTime movie that's currently loaded in, frame 8 of 313 total frames. And it tells you how long it's going to be able to take before you can actually get all the data necessary for this optical flow retiming to work. And it says 28 minutes left, and that's a pretty long time for a file that's only about 10 seconds long. And this is a 10-bit uncompressed HD clip, so I mean this is a pretty large clip to start with, but still this will take a while. This is an 8-core, top-of-the-line Mac Pro with, I believe, 8 gigs of RAMs in this, a lot of hard drive space. So I mean this is one of the top-of-the-line systems you can get, and it's still going to take this long. So this is one of the drawbacks of using optical flow retiming. Because of this problem, you have to kind of pick your spots with when you're going to use this. Sometimes, just due to time constraints, you have to do your retiming or your slow motions in Final Cut Pro, and you got to just live with the frame blending or the way that Final Cut Pro does it. So we're going to let that go, and through the magic of these tutorials, I will come back when that is finished. But before I do that, I just want to let you know that the temporary files that Motion 3 is creating right now, they get to be very, very, very large, and a lot of times they will stay on your hard drive indefinitely unless you manually trash them. I've seen situations where people with 200, 300 gigabytes free space all of a sudden do this technique a couple times and then realize they have no hard drive space left and they have no idea what's going on. So you can actually set the cache directory where these files are being written. Not only should you set it to a directory of your choice, but you should be aware where that directory is in case you might find that you have very large files sitting there that you don't need anymore. So let's go up to the preferences in Motion. We'll go Motion, Preferences. And let me bring this window in here. Under cache, we should see a list of currently where the cache directory is, and it's going slow for me right now because that analysis is going on in the background. So over here, we can see that the optical flow retiming cache is listed right here, and you could save retiming files in the folder with the source media, which is helpful because if you know where your source media is, you're going to automatically know where the retiming is. But by default, it chooses a folder, and I've actually changed this folder manually. But this is where you would do it. So you can choose what folder for your retiming cache to be in, or you could just delete your retiming cache entirely from this window. But this is very important. You might find if you don't know where this folder is, or if you don't do anything, that you have no hard drive space available. So we'll come back when this optical flow retiming is all done. Alright, so we are back in Motion, and the analysis for the clip is finished. And what we're going to do now is save and go back to Final Cut. Something I realized, though, in the interim, before that was finished, is if you made the clip 50% speed, which should double the length of the clip on the Final Cut Pro timeline, that's actually not going to happen unless you change some attributes in the project properties settings here in Motion. So let me show you how to do that. You're going to go to Edit here in Motion, then go down to Project Properties, and then from here you're going to want to change the duration of the project, basically to double however many frames that's listed in here. So we brought in 313 frames, and with our 50% optical flow retiming, that stretched out to 626. So we're going to actually have to enter that in here, or else the clip duration in Final Cut Pro will still be 313 frames. You will only see the first half of that clip. Not something I realized when I was getting myself into this. So let's click OK. And then when you click Save here, you've done everything you needed to do. You could either quit Motion or just Command Tab over to Final Cut, and you should see your changes over there. So let's save it. And then let's go over to Final Cut, which is right here behind. And here on that first track layer is the Motion project that we saved. Now you'll notice there's a second clip on track 2. I created that before resuming the video. And what I actually had to do in this circumstance is I had to export from Motion, export to a QuickTime movie, and then I had to bring that in. And the reason I had to bring that in is because when I saved from Motion and came over to Final Cut, for some reason I'm still not quite sure why this happens, or if this is just the way the software works. I lose my interlacing when I just have a nested Motion clip on the timeline. straight, just straight from motion. For some reason, the interlacing goes away, so it's like a progressive frame. That's kind of not what I want. If I started with interlaced footage and I do the optical flow retiming, I want to end with interlaced footage. And for whatever reason, the only way I can do that is to actually export a QuickTime from Motion and then bring that back into Final Cut. Just a little weird quirk in the software. It's just something for you to look at. So that's what the clip on track 2 is. And that is our optical flow retimed footage. And I also made a little change. I put right after it, I did the same clip but using Final Cut's slow motion frame blending technique. And the reason I did that is because I want to be able to side by side take a look here so that you can see up close what's going on, what the difference is between the Final Cut method and the optical flow motion method. So I'm going to double click the optical flow method, and that should load up here in the viewer. And I'm viewing this at 100% so we could specifically see what's going on. So let me cue this up to right there. And then in the canvas we're going to see basically Final Cut's version right there. Okay. So first let's go frame by frame with the optical flow retimed version to see what's going on here. So let's just advance frame by frame. And you can see as that block car comes in from right to left, every frame stepping through, it's a pretty uniform move. So every other frame is being created by motion. And it's doing a really good job kind of figuring out where those extra frames need to be. That's the whole optical flow retiming thing. So you could still kind of tell the frames that are being created. There's still a little bit of a jump there when you get this close and you go frame by frame. But when you play this in real time, it's going to look really clean, in my opinion. And now let's go over to the canvas window and let's look at the frame blending technique in Final Cut Pro. Hopefully this is going to come across, even though this tutorial window is fairly small. You can see that every other frame is kind of a weird blended, kind of a ghosting mishmash of the two frames. There's definitely something going on there, and it's more jumpy. It's a lot more apparent, and I'll just tell you, this is a frame recorded in the camera, and this is a frame blend in Final Cut Pro. This is a frame recorded, and this is a frame blend. You can almost see every time we get to a frame blended frame, the car seems to stretch out, and it loses a lot of definition on the edge there. So that's a frame blended frame, that's a normal frame, that's a frame blended frame, that's a normal frame. So let's go back, and I'm going to play this a little bit quicker and see what it looks like. Okay, that might be too quick for the tutorial. Let's try it one more time. It's just not as uniform and smooth and defined as the motion method, which is right here, which is straight across the screen from right to left. And since this is interlaced footage, if you're viewing this on a broadcast monitor the way it's intended for output, it looks a lot better. I mean, in my opinion, the optical flow retime footage definitely looks a lot closer to in-camera slow motion versus the Final Cut frame blended method. I don't know if this comes across in the tutorial, but the motion optical flow retime window that's over to the left, it's not as clearly defined. It's losing a little bit of definition from the frame on the right, and I think the reason is because when I had to export a QuickTime in Motion, I was starting with DVC Pro HD footage, and I exported to 10-bit 10-bit uncompressed 1920 by 1080. I think that's just kind of the way it came in, so I think I lost a little definition. I probably could have done a better job on that, but that's just, that's not really a big deal as far as the tutorial is concerned. So anyways, this tutorial was a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, but that hopefully is a good introduction for you to use optical flow retiming. It looks a lot better. Again, the downside is it's extremely time consuming and not the most user-friendly way of doing things. But that's it. Thanks. This video is brought to you by ProVideoSchool.com. Sign up for live online training and view other free tutorials at ProVideoSchool.com.